I'm Jack Newton, CEO and co-founder of Clio, the world's leading cloud-based legal software provider. In each episode of Daily Matters, we'll explore what this new normal means for law firms, how legal professionals can find success while working remotely, and how lawyers can best serve their clients during this unprecedented situation. Today's guest is Kristin Tyler, co-founder of LAWCLERK and partner at Garman Turner Gordon, LLP. Kristin, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
So, Kristin, first of all, how are you and your family doing?
Well, we are definitely some of the lucky ones here in our hometown of Las Vegas. We are very fortunate to still be able to work from home and have plenty to eat and all those things. That being said, we have, our family has had personal impact by this illness, by this pandemic. And so we very much know it's real, and our hearts go out to everybody who's being affected. But we've adjusted to the new level of chaos with a couple of little kids at home and two busy lawyers at home and no help. So it's a new level of chaos, but we're kind of getting into a groove now.
That idea of getting into a groove in this kind of climate, I heard referred to as our new abnormal, which I thought was a good way of putting it. We're getting used to our new abnormal.
Exactly. Because was there ever really a normal to begin with?
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly.
That wasn't at my house. So
exactly. It did get distinctly less normal though, quite quickly in March, didn't it? And what do you find being on your mind most right now?
Right. It probably just depends on what moment in the day I'm in, but I think it's really just trying to stay ahead of whatever's next, whether it's time to go start our second grade class for the day, time to make another grocery order on Instacart, time to join a virtual boot camp with some lawyers, just trying to stay one little tiny step ahead of where I need to be, because it's a lot right now.
Yeah, no, agree. And maybe focusing first on the personal side of things before we get on to your professional life, what kind of changes have you seen on the personal side of things, and what are some of the things you're doing to adapt and survive in this climate?
Sure. Definitely giving myself a lot of grace that, I used to be the type, I was a little neurotic about laundry, and I've never had laundry pile up, and there's laundry piled up in my house right now. So a little bit of grace there. No, we've done some things that honestly have been kind of wonderful. We've started doing a family Zoom call with whoever wants to get on it, extended family on Sunday afternoons, just pick a time and whoever wants to jump in. And that's been really fun. That's something, I don't know why we didn't do that before, and I hope that continues, because I feel a lot more connected to extended family members all over the country, hearing about their garden and what bloomed this week and what are they cooking from the garden. I mean, you wouldn't know that before. So I like that. That's been really good. Same thing, happy hours with girlfriends. We did a virtual wine tasting. That was an experience. The winemaker took his iPad and walked us through the vineyard. I mean, so it's kind of different, but
that's great.
Yeah.
And did you each have samples of the wine you were going to be tasting?
We did. They shipped out 5 bottles of wine ahead of time and then told you which one to pour when and talked about it. And there were, I think, 6 couples on the Zoom with us, 6 friends.
That's a fantastic idea.
It was a good time.
I did a flavor of that with my brothers and some friends for my brother's 40th birthday recently. And we did a virtual Hot Ones challenge, if you're familiar with the TV show. It's a YouTube show, actually, but the idea is, it's a really, really neat show. One of my favorite episodes is with Gordon Ramsay. And the concept is the host of this show interviews somebody as they eat progressively hotter hot wings.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
You see people gradually completely lose their composure over the course of this interview. And he's actually had a number of pretty impressive A-list celebrities on the show, and it's a lot of fun. And cool. Same thing, we coordinated having the same set of hot sauces distributed to everyone that was participating in this distributed Hot Ones challenge. So shifting gears a little bit from wine and hot wings, and those sound amazing to me right now.
Very important things to talk about.
We'll try to charge through, and I want to hear a little bit more about the professional side of things. And first, tell us a little bit about your business. So you co-founded LAWCLERK, which is a network for freelance lawyers. Can you just walk us through why you founded LAWCLERK, how it works, and what a freelance lawyer network is all about.
Sure. We're going to pack that. So 5 years ago, it's like exactly 5 years ago this month, actually, I was at a partner at a larger regional firm, and a small group of partners there, we all decided to leave and build our own firm, a boutique firm, much smaller. And the big impetus for that was we were growing more and more concerned about the overhead demands at the larger firm and if that was realistic to maintain as a long-term business model. And so we left. We started our firm 5 years ago this month. So it's exciting to be able to celebrate that, even though we probably won't see each other.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks. Yeah. Thankfully, with the firm, we started using Clio from day one. And so the transition for that team to go work remote was seamless, easy.
Great.
So that's great. But really, the process of going from that bigger firm to the smaller firm made us realize we missed a couple of things. So, for example, we missed certain areas of legal expertise. My background is I'm an estate planning lawyer. I do trust and estates, probate. And, weird things come up on my cases from time to time. So for example, I'd have things come up once in a while related to gaming because we live in Las Vegas. I have clients that own gaming assets or have gaming licenses. And it was really nice at the bigger firm to be able to just walk down the hall, knock on my partner's door that does gaming and say, hey, this is my issue that's going on. What do I need to be thinking about? What should I do? And when you go to a smaller firm that doesn't have as broad of an array of expertise like that, you can't just walk down the hall and knock on someone's door. And we wanted a way to still be able to tap into that type of expertise from time to time when you need it in a flexible way. The other thing that we missed was, a lot of my partners do trial work. And when you're gearing up for trial, there's times you just need more lawyers around to hammer out documents, work on motions in limine, prep trial exhibits. Like you just need boots on the ground help. And so these two factors of from time to time just needing a lot more people than we have at our 16 lawyer firm to needing the expertise. And this was also around the rise of Airbnb and Uber and some of those businesses. We were like, well, what can you do in legal that's kind of like that to like match people up that have expertise or have time with the people that need that help? And out of this whole ongoing discussion for a couple of years after that came LAWCLERK, and we launched in January of 18. So we're in our third year of business now, and it's been quite a roller coaster. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, and congratulations on both a 5-year anniversary with your firm and approaching 3 years with LAWCLERK. That's a big milestone.
Thank you.
On both fronts, especially for a startup, and the survival rate in startups is not great. So to make it to 3 years is an incredible achievement. And you highlighted, I think, a really important pain point that's almost a structural pain point in the way that most law firms are run, which is when you're thinking about your peak demand and the maximum busyness that you'll reach, you can either staff to that peak or turn away business that might have larger demands than you're able to address right now, or worse, take on those cases that you maybe don't have the capacity for and underserve your clients and maybe even go as far as being in breach of your responsibilities and all the risks that go along with that. So I think it's a real juggling act for firms of all sizes to figure out what is the right capacity for us. And having this idea of on-demand services is a really powerful one. Like this idea of there being variable capacity that you can kind of turn a dial on is a pretty unique one for law firms. There aren't many firms that are leveraging those services or maybe even aware of those services being available. So can you tell us a little bit what it's been like educating the market around this concept? Because it is a pretty new one. And and I'm curious to see what your experience has been in terms of that education and maybe some of the light bulb moments you've seen happen for your clients as they start to experience this idea of variable capacity.
Well, sure. That's largely been what I've focused my work on the last 3 years, is educating lawyers, getting the word out about LAWCLERK. In many regards, the whole idea of a contract lawyer is nothing new to legal. We've had so-called contract lawyers for decades. This was a lawyer that maybe in your community, you pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I've got this appellate brief. I don't really want to write it. I've been living and eating and breathing this case for 5 years, and I want some fresh eyes on this brief. I want someone else to write it. Great. The problem with that contract lawyer setup is, well, what happens? I mean, how do you know that this buddy of yours that you call from time to time is really qualified. Maybe they aren't, but they're hungry, so they pick up the work. Maybe they're not available. Then who do you go to? And then also that with that model, you were typically paying them an hourly rate for their contract work, not knowing going into it how much it was going to cost. And so a lot of times lawyers would get bills from their contract lawyer that were way beyond what they expected. And we've heard a lot of stories from freelancers getting stiffed in that scenario. So our model is all project by project flat fee. There's no fee to sign up. There's no monthly fee. So that makes it really easy to access. And the hurdles we've had to overcome with education are, there's a few. I'd say the big ones are, there is, for whatever reason, this stereotype that a freelance lawyer is a lawyer who can't get a quote unquote real job. And for those of you listening to the podcast who can't see me, I am doing air quotes around the words real job, whatever that means in legal. Okay. So I think getting the word out about the quality and the talent and the experience level of a lot of these freelance lawyers has been really key. They come from every background you can think of. We've got law professors that freelance. We've got former big law attorneys with really specialized knowledge in really high level legal areas that have gotten burned out, don't want to do the big law race anymore. And so now they want to just do freelance work. We've got, lawyers that stay home with kids or with elderly parents. We've got retired and semi-retired lawyers with decades of experience. Talk about the power of maybe a 7 or 8 year lawyer who's running their own firm, for them to be able to hire a 25-year lawyer to collaborate on an appellate brief and get that done. Like, it's just really amazing. Military spouses, that's another big category, because, they get moved around every 2 to 3 years. And in fact, I didn't know until I got into this more, was that the majority of military bases are in really rural areas. So they're not getting stationed in New York City where there's a gabillion jobs, or, really highly populated areas. So that makes it hard for them to find jobs beyond the licensing restrictions as well. So number one, educating folks about the talent level of these freelancers and that they're really qualified folks. That's probably the number one feedback we get from the people that work with us too is, wow, I can't believe I found this person and they're willing to do freelance work.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, really important point. And realizing that life circumstances put people in a position where freelancing is the right fit for them.
Yeah.
Just as you see in all sorts of other parts of the economy. And these are sometimes the best people in the space that are doing this kind of freelance work. And it's an enormous opportunity to be able to leverage these folks in your cases. Now tell us a little bit about how you've seen COVID-19 impact your business, how it's impacted LAWCLERK, and how you see maybe the landscape for freelance attorneys shifting over the coming months.
Sure. So, wow, what an interesting experience the last 8 weeks. So we've all been working from home. We transitioned our team to work from home very quickly, and they're up and running, doing a great job. I'm very pleased to be able to say that we are continuing to see growth. We are seeing month over month growth. We absolutely expect to see growth quarter after quarter. I mean, from your early days, I'm sure, when you're this new of a startup, you're looking at daily metrics, weekly metrics, monthly metrics. And there was a little bit of an initial slowdown in March when everybody was kind of like, what? We have to go home and work? But everything's picked up. The courts are figuring it out. Legal is coming back to life. Clients and their issues. Some are delaying services, but a lot of them are not. And so we're really happy to see growth, both from a steady influx of freelancers joining the site. We haven't seen like a deluge. That's the one question I keep getting is, I bet you're getting like thousands of lawyers signing up to freelance. We're not getting like a deluge of freelancers, but there's definitely a continuously steady stream of new freelance talent coming onto the site, which is good.
And you're seeing, to be clear, increase on the demand side for those freelance attorneys as well. And are you seeing that just as an overall trend in line with your previous growth rate, or are you seeing a change that you think is being driven directly or indirectly by COVID-19?
Right. I think it's still too early to tell, because really it's 2 months in to see that. But the feedback we are getting from some of our users on the demand side, the hiring attorney side, is that they're transitioning now from, they used to spend hours on a daily commute or sitting in court waiting for hearings to be called. They're taking that time and using it to finally set up the systems and processes that they wanted to set up to properly delegate to freelance lawyers. And so we've had a lot of people say, really a silver lining of this is I'm finally taking the time to get myself organized to start outsourcing and delegating and getting the help I've needed for so long. So that's great.
Very interesting. And
Mhm.
we're seeing the same thing on the technology side, by the way. Maybe that's
Okay.
going hand in hand, but the silver lining of things slowing down a little bit has been, okay, I'm going to finally implement the technology stack I've been putting off. I'm going to
Yeah.
modernize my law firm. I'm going to start leveraging freelance attorneys. That's I think a real silver lining is firms that had been punting on some of these changes are finally able to position to make those investments and position themselves for what likely will be a deluge in demand in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been predicting this for years, that there's going to be a transformation in legal to incorporate technology, and it's happening right now at breakneck speed. I was on
It
a
is.
conference call with local judges because I still have an active license. So, they have like a big Zoom call with all Nevada lawyers. I log into that. And one of the judges said, and I love this quote, she said, our court IT department is dragging the courts kicking and screaming into the next century as far as technology. And so, hopefully the courts, because they're being forced to adapt, it's going to trickle down. Other lawyers are going
That's
to do it
right.
too. And lawyers who have been tethered to their office because of a server are now looking for ways to cut that cord and to be able to work more seamlessly at home, at the office, wherever. I think we're going to see some sort of a hybrid working model where people aren't as wed to working only in the office as they maybe were before.
Agree wholeheartedly. And other than increased growth both on the demand and the supply side, I guess, in terms of freelance lawyers, are you seeing any other interesting changes as a result of COVID-19? Are you seeing anything shift in terms of the nature of the work that's coming in, or the mindset of the firms that are working with you?
Sure. Definitely right now we're seeing more work in the areas of real estate, primarily people looking to get out of deals. And we're seeing a lot of work in the employment spectrum of uh, cases involving workers being either forced to go to work when they don't feel it's safe, they don't want to, people being terminated when they feel like they shouldn't have been. So employment has been very busy. Real estate's been very busy. Again, our core all the time is family, bankruptcy, criminals maybe slowed down a little bit, but there's still pending cases that are, there's maybe not as many new cases, but the pending cases are still getting worked through our system. And we've seen a number of really interesting COVID specific projects go through the site. For example, one, and this was back in March, it was early, there was a project, the attorney had a client who was based in Europe and had started some mobile testing, like vans or buses in Europe to go around and do COVID tests. And that company wanted to quickly expand into the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And they wanted a memo for each state on the licensing and regulatory things that their client would have to check off the list in order to get those mobile units up and running to do the mobile tests. So that was kind of interesting, but that's
Yeah,
just one thing.
super interesting. And I'm curious, if you're a law firm thinking about the possibility of using a freelance network like LawCLERK, is there a kind of self-assessment that you can go through to figure out, am I ready for this, and am I handling the kind of cases that might make this a service that I could leverage? Can you give a little bit of guidance to our listeners on that front?
Sure. I will absolutely give some guidance. And then I want to point out two resources before I start talking and forget. Number one, if you are listening to this and you say, okay, I know I need to learn more about this, I need to tap into this as a resource. If you go to our website, lawclerk.legal, at the top banner, we have a document called The Ultimate Guide to Legal Outsourcing. And it's 42 pages of goodness written by my co-founder, Talitha Kozlowski, and it really goes in depth. So if you have some time for some reading right now and you want to dig into this, go download that Ultimate Guide, and that's going to walk you through so much of what you need to know,
Perfect. And
including
we'll link to that in the show notes
yeah,
too, by the way.
awesome. And that also includes a project delegation worksheet. So we came up with a 4-page worksheet that if you really need a lawyer who needs some handholding, they can go through the worksheet to make sure they properly scope out and chart their project. It's really not that hard, but the worksheet's there to break it down for folks who need a little extra guidance. But in terms of where to get started with outsourcing, yeah, we generally tell lawyers, pick something easy. Pick something like a research project. That's a no-brainer. Pick something like maybe you have a blog on your law firm website and you just haven't had some new content for a while. You could go hire some of our freelancers to write blogs for you on a list of articles or topics that you specify. That's another super easy one to get started. I think every lawyer, especially litigators, almost always have some sort of discovery work that they could hand off. I have yet to meet a lawyer who genuinely tells me they love discovery. So, you can offload that discovery work pretty quickly. But, a lot of lawyers test the waters with an easier project. But we also have people that dive right in. We had one guy, his first project was a $20,000 appellate brief. So talk about taking the plunge. We see the whole spectrum. But if you really are hesitant for some reason, I would say, number one, pick something, get out of your own way and give it a shot, because that's the only way you're going to find out if and how it works for you. And I think you're going to be pretty pleasantly surprised.
So I think that's an interesting suggestion as well. This doesn't need to be an all-in, boil the ocean kind of effort or investment. Try it for something small, for one case, and just do almost a pilot project and see how it works, and see if it's a good fit for you. You can kind of double down from there if you see it working well. Are you seeing law firms look at and it's still early days, so the answer may be no, but are you seeing law firms look at the variable capacity that firms like LAWCLERK can provide in a different light in the COVID-19 climate as it relates to maybe a general unwillingness to do net new hiring? We're certainly seeing a lot of trepidation around that front, but we're also seeing firms deal with big spikes in demand. We're seeing that in bankruptcy, we're seeing it in employment, we're seeing it in other practice areas that are really booming. Are you becoming an outlet for some of those needs, or do you see early signs of that starting to shape up?
We do, and that's really exciting. So a couple of stories in that regard. We've talked to, I don't know how many, just countless lawyers who had really ambitious growth plans for 2020. It's like a whole new decade. People came into the decade, oh, I'm going to slay, I'm going to grow my firm, I'm going to hire 2 new lawyers every quarter, guns a-blazing. And then
everyone had their great
2020
plans, right?
Yep, their vision boards are up on the wall. They were ready to go. And then this happened. And I think initially for a lot of people, they felt like the rug got pulled out from under them. And then they said, okay, wait, is there a way to still bring in the volume of cases? Because maybe they're lucky in that their marketing's working, their phones are ringing, they've got the work, they still need the help. And so, yes, there has been a really large number of attorneys joining us who had otherwise planned to hire a traditional in-office associate, but are now nervous about that overhead expense and the uncertainty of what's legal going to look like in 6 months or a year. So they don't want to make that hire. We've also had some lawyers, and I love this story, who are looking to add practice areas. So you mentioned bankruptcy, and not a lot of people think bankruptcy is going to pick up. So for lawyers who maybe, you took bankruptcy in law school, you answer the questions about it in the bar exam, but you don't really know much more about it. This is a good time for you to, first of all, go do your own education you need to practice in that area. Go take CLEs, get yourself up to speed. But if you are still a little bit nervous about maybe taking on those clients, you can come in and collaborate with some of our freelancers who have experience in whatever area of law you're thinking about adding, to, collaborate, work together these cases while you learn them and refine your own systems.
Yeah, I think that's a super important point, and a big opportunity is especially for lawyers that are negatively impacted by this crisis with their set of current practice areas. We are going to see lawyers thinking about, how do I pivot to some of these extremely high demand practice areas? And I think what we saw in the 2008-09 crisis that we need to be very cognizant of is we actually saw a big spike in malpractice because lawyers were jumping into practice areas that they were getting in over their heads, and having this safety net, or call it training wheels, but a resource in the form of freelance lawyers that have been there, done that, and can help train you up on this and provide a little bit of a support infrastructure for you as you adapt to these new practice areas. And some of these practice areas, we're going to see unprecedented demand, which I think is going to be a big opportunity. But you've pointed out, I think, a very valuable way that you can leverage these freelance attorneys to help up your game and to help tackle and be adaptable to what the legal landscape and its demands might look like in the coming months. I'm curious. We've seen in so many areas that this crisis has really helped accelerate and transform some of the trends that were well underway in many industries. legal is one among many. You know, we're seeing how retail might have played out in a more compressed time frame. We're seeing how legal is going to play out in a more compressed time frame. When you look at the future of the practice of law and some of the impacts this crisis is driving, do you have a perspective on what some of the lasting impacts on the legal profession this crisis will have, in particular as it relates to the use of freelance attorneys and these kinds of networks?
Sure. Well, we've seen trends for a number of years now from Big Law, actually, Altman and Whale. They do an annual report, kind of like your legal trends report, but focused on the Big Law segment. And that have shown that Big Law has been using outsourced attorney resources for a number of years and seeing success with them. And so we've seen that trickle into the small law space. We like to think thanks in part to LAWCLERK coming on board. And we think that's only going to continue. We think it's going to become much more mainstream. LAWCLERK is the gig economy meets legal. And I think that we are now really shifting into much more of a gig economy space. It's going to offer the flexibility, the affordability, the adaptability that lawyers need to remain competitive moving forward.
I think that's bang on. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, maybe for those that have been impacted negatively by some of the layoffs and furloughs and other reductions in force that many law firms have undergone in the last 2 months. If you're newly available and you've perhaps been impacted by some of those cuts, how would you think about potentially becoming part of your network and evaluating whether becoming a freelance attorney is the right fit for you?
Sure. There's a lot of lawyers out there right now who are making those sorts of assessments and reevaluating what they want from their legal career. And so in that regard, for a lot of people, it's a unique opportunity to shift gears and maybe go a different route than they were before. So anyone who thinks that they want to incorporate freelance legal work into their career moving forward on a full-time or part-time basis, a couple things I would say to you. Number one, you're absolutely welcome to come join the LawCLERK network. We are always accepting new freelancers. There's no fee to sign up. There's no monthly fee, unlike some other sites that do charge a monthly fee. So if you want to check it out and see if it's something that can help you, by all means, please join us. And if you have questions about that, we've got a great support team on the site. They can answer questions. The most successful freelancers that I've met over the past few years, if they are people that decide they want to be a dedicated freelance lawyer and that's what their career looks like, the things I see are they are reaching out to their own network. Okay, so think about old school marketing to your law school alumni group, the other lawyers in your community, by practice area, by whatever area you want to be into. Don't overlook reaching out to your own network saying, hey, you know what? I'm taking on some freelance work. If you need some help, keep me in mind. Okay. Plus there's social media networks too, which is great.
Right.
The most successful freelancers tend to have 2 to 4 direct clients, either attorneys or law firms that they're doing work for directly. Awesome. They do work for us as well. We do have quite a few I don't know the exact number, but we do have quite a few that solely feed themselves based on the LawCLERK work. But by and large, the people I talk to generally have a few direct clients they work with, and then they also do the gig work on our site. So just don't overlook reaching out to your own network to let them know that you're available should they need help. I think that's a really good step for folks to take.
And can you tell us a little bit, like if you are stepping into this opportunity, is there a minimum commitment you need to make in terms of the number of projects, the number of hours you're committing, or could this really be put yourself up for grabs and see what you end up getting matched with, kind of like an Uber driver, I guess. I don't think there's any kind of minimum in terms of how much you're driving. You just put yourself out there and see if you catch a fare.
Exactly. The good thing about Uber is you can only be giving one ride at a time. So that Uber automatically paces their drivers. With our site, we do occasionally have freelancers that we're like, oh, wait, they have 7 projects going right now. Is that too much? Like,
right.
You got to pace yourself. And so we've had a few folks figure that out the hard way and it all worked out. It was fine, but I don't think they slept a lot for like a whole week.
Right.
So you have to kind of pace yourself, look at your own workflow before you're applying to a lot of projects, but there is an opportunity to have multiple pieces of work going for multiple lawyers at the same time.
I was just thinking kind of a meta way you could have a law clerk freelance attorney hiring other law clerk freelance attorneys if they took on too much
Whoa.
work.
Yeah, you're like going into the matrix there, Jack. I don't even know what just happened
All
with
right,
that
well,
idea. So
we'll take a step back from there.
yeah.
This has been a really informative discussion. I think it's been educational for me, and I know for many of our listeners, in terms of this resource that freelance lawyers can provide, not just in a time of crisis like COVID-19, but the kind of flexibility and adaptability it can provide in times when we're not in crisis and just need that variable capacity. And frankly, it sounds like an amazing opportunity for part-time or full-time employment for people that may not fit into the more traditional law firm model. There's so many people that are just in a life situation where freelancing makes a ton of sense. And I think you're doing all of this in kind of a technology-enabled way as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about the technology side of things before we close out? I'd love to just hear how you think about technology enabling all of this, and
Sure.
how you think about the broader role technology has to play in this world.
Sure. I'll address it actually kind of in terms of LAWCLERK, because there's a couple of key points I want to make there. Number one, anytime you're outsourcing to a freelance lawyer, whether it's through our site or otherwise, attorneys need to be really mindful of still protecting client confidentiality. And so one of the safeguards we do is we have a number of hoops we make lawyers jump through before they're accepted onto the site to make sure they're really a lawyer, that they are who they are. So this isn't a site for lawyers, no consumers. And we really work hard to police that. Beyond that, every lawyer on the site is already bound by their duty of confidentiality that they take when they become a lawyer. We, on each project, have an additional non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality agreement, that the law clerk signs every single time. Okay. All of the data, communications, documents is housed through Amazon Web Services, which has the highest level of security and encryption that we can find for our users. So we have done our own due diligence to try and make the site as safe and secure for you to use. Now, beyond that, LAWCLERK, we connect lawyers with freelance lawyers. That's the gist of what we do. But we also provide a number of tools that make working remotely with a freelance lawyer a lot easier than you might think. So there's built-in chat features back and forth. There is built-in document sharing and communication. There's timekeeping. Now, if you also go into your LAWCLERK account and click integrate with Clio, because we do integrate with you guys, what that does is it allows your two accounts to communicate back and forth. Now, back when I was just a lawyer, before I was also a legal tech entrepreneur, I would have heard the word integration and been like, well, that sounds complicated. I can never figure that. But it's really clicking a few buttons. And all it does is allow the accounts to talk back and forth. And that syncs up a couple of key pieces of data. So if you, as a busy attorney, you assign a freelance lawyer to write a motion for you, whatever deadline you give them in LAWCLERK is going to automatically show up as a calendar entry on your Clio account. When the freelancer inputs their time, because the freelancers do still track the amount of time they spend working on a project and give you a time log. If you're a Clio user, it's going to sync those time entries to your Clio pre-bill for that matter, so that you don't forget to bill the freelancer's time to your client at a reasonable market rate. So these are some really cool pieces of technology that are built into our site to make it easier for lawyers to do work remotely with freelancers and still keep them and their clients secure.
Yeah, secure, and you're also making that interaction almost transparent. You're just having so much data flow through back and forth securely and on one platform that just takes a ton of friction out of the equation. Kristin, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I was wondering if there's a parting thought that you'd like to leave our listeners with, speaking to them either as legal professionals or as human beings.
Sure. Well, we're recording this. I don't know when it's going to air. We're recording this on the Friday of Lawyer Wellbeing Week. And so in the vein of well-being, this week I heard about a lawyer who had a heart attack. There's nothing new, noteworthy in that other than the fact that she was 28 years old. Oh. And so I really hope lawyers can be good to themselves and be good to each other. I've also heard stories this week of lawyers reporting each other to bar complaints because they weren't able to reach settlements and mediations and playing these stupid games that really don't matter people. So please do your best to be kind to yourself, your other fellow human beings in this profession, so that we can come out of this stronger than ever to help our clients.
Well said. Well, again, thanks so much for joining me, Kristin. Really enjoyed this conversation and hope to talk to you again soon.
Take care, Jack. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Daily Matters today, a podcast from Clio. Rate and review wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Daily Matters is produced by Andrew Booth, Sam Rosenthal, and Derek Boland, and hosted by yours truly, Jack Newton. Thanks also to Clio, the world's leading cloud-based legal technology provider, for supporting this podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Clio, please visit clio.com.